The night did not unfold the way anyone connected to Golden State would have hoped, especially considering how quickly the game slipped out of reach from the opening minutes. It was clear that the Warriors were facing a rhythm that never truly slowed down on the other side of the floor. When an opposing point guard explodes for 40 points and matches a career high, the margin for error disappears almost instantly. Add to that an unreal shooting display from beyond the arc, with shots falling at a rate above 60%, and it becomes nearly impossible to control the pace or momentum of the game. No defensive scheme can fully survive that kind of efficiency, especially on the road and without key rotation pieces available. Even so, the scoreboard does not tell the entire story. There were moments buried inside the blowout that hinted at resilience and internal growth. The Warriors managed to place 6 different players in double figures, which speaks to ball movement and shared responsibility rather than one-dimensional offense. Interestingly, the most productive scorers in the 20s came from the bench, a detail that cannot be ignored when evaluating the long-term structure of the roster. Seeing that kind of contribution from the second unit changes how the coaching staff can approach rotations moving forward, especially during stretches when starters are struggling to find clean looks. Despite briefly cutting the deficit to 14 points, the game never truly felt within reach. The final margin of 18 reflected a contest that was largely controlled from start to finish by the opposition. Still, considering how lopsided things could have become, there is some value in recognizing that the situation never spiraled into a 30 or 40-point embarrassment. That may sound like a low bar, but context matters. Without a reliable secondary creator available, the offensive burden becomes overwhelming for one player to shoulder alone, no matter how elite his talent may be. This game also forced a hard conversation about identity. Golden State has built its success on spacing, movement, and perimeter shooting, but nights like this expose the vulnerability of an offense that lacks a consistent interior presence. Watching possession after possession unfold with all 5 players stationed around the perimeter, there was a glaring absence near the block. No true target to dump the ball into, no physical presence to collapse the defense, and no natural offensive rebounder planted near the rim. That absence has been discussed openly by the team's leader before, and it stood out even more in this matchup. The lack of a dependable post option does not just affect scoring, it impacts rebounding and second-chance opportunities. Relying on guards and wings to chase their own shots is not a sustainable formula across an entire season. A roster needs someone whose primary job is to occupy space near the basket, absorb contact, and create chaos on missed shots. Whether that solution comes from within the current group or through a future roster move remains to be seen, but it is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Individual performances added more layers to the conversation. There were encouraging flashes from younger players who made the most of limited opportunities, showing energy and efficiency when their number was called. At the same time, there were veterans who struggled to convert looks they typically knocked down, highlighting the inconsistency that has followed the team through stretches of the season. When minutes are distributed unevenly, frustration can grow, especially when certain players show productivity but remain capped at under 20 minutes of action. One of the most significant developments of the night came from Jonathan Kuminga. After an extended absence from the rotation, spanning more than 16 games, his return brought an immediate spark. Coming off the bench, he poured in 20 points in just 21 minutes, shooting 7 of 10 from the field. That kind of efficiency, especially after limited recent playing time, is not easy to replicate. It speaks to preparation, confidence, and an understanding of how to attack mismatches without forcing the issue. Kuminga's performance stood out not only because of the numbers, but because of what it represents. He has long been viewed as a potential secondary scoring option, someone capable of relieving pressure when defenses load up on the primary star. Nights like this reinforce why the organization placed such high expectations on him. When they made their draft decision, his blend of athleticism and aggression gives the offense a different dimension, particularly in transition and on straight-line drives to the basket. What makes his situation even more intriguing is the uncertainty surrounding his future role. Strong stretches could solidify his place as a core piece, earning him consistent minutes and a larger offensive role. At the same time, those same performances could dramatically increase his value in potential roster discussions. History around the league has shown that teams sometimes showcase young talent before making major moves, and that possibility cannot be dismissed here. Beyond individual storylines, The upcoming schedule adds urgency to every evaluation. The next road matchup against Dallas presents a different kind of challenge, one that will test defensive discipline and mental toughness. Road games magnify flaws, and without a full complement of available players, execution becomes even more critical. How the Warriors respond in that environment could shape the direction of the next several weeks. The broader question hovering over everything is how this team adapts. Losing a key contributor forces recalibration, and that process can either fracture chemistry or strengthen it. Young players are being asked to step into uncomfortable roles. Veterans must lead through example, and the coaching staff has to balance development with the pressure to win now. Every possession, every rotation decision, and every matchup adjustment carries added weight as the season progresses. What is clear is that this stretch will reveal a lot about the Warriors' internal hierarchy and long-term vision. Performances like the one from Kuminga inject hope and unpredictability into the equation. While structural issues like interior presence demand attention, the answers may not come immediately, but the direction will begin to take shape as these games pile up, and the margin for experimentation continues to shrink. As the schedule tightens and the pressure increases, the focus naturally shifts toward how this group responds to adversity rather than the loss itself. The absence of a key contributor has forced everyone else to recalibrate their roles, and that adjustment period is never comfortable. What stands out most is how fragile the balance becomes when one player is asked to compensate for too many missing pieces. No matter how special a star may be, basketball does not reward isolation over 48 minutes, especially when opponents are locked in and shooting with confidence. The defensive breakdowns from the previous game were not purely about effort, but about timing and communication. When rotations are a step late and closeouts are rushed, elite shooters will punish you. That was evident throughout the night, particularly when the opposition began to feel unstoppable from long range. Momentum in basketball is brutal when it swings fully to one side, and once belief sets in for the team and rhythm, even contested shots begin to fall. That reality puts immense stress on a defense that is already stretched thin. Offensively, the Warriors showed glimpses of what they want to be, but those moments came in short bursts rather than sustained stretches. Ball movement looked sharp at times, leading to open looks and confident finishes. Yet those sequences were often followed by empty possessions where spacing collapsed without a consistent interior threat. Defenses can stay attached to shooters and recover quickly, eliminating the margin that Golden State's offense typically relies on. It becomes a cycle where every miss fuels transition opportunities the other way. The bench continues to be a fascinating variable in this equation. Contributions from reserve players have kept games from completely unraveling, and in some cases have been the only reason the score remained respectable. Energy, pace, and willingness to attack have all been positives coming from the second unit. That raises important questions about lineup flexibility and whether certain combinations deserve extended runs. Even if it disrupts traditional rotation patterns, minutes distribution remains a sensitive topic, especially when productive players find themselves watching extended stretches from the sideline. Development does not happen in theory. It happens on the floor, through mistakes and adjustments. When younger players show efficiency and impact in limited time, the argument for expanding their role grows stronger. Balancing that growth with the urgency to win is one of the most difficult challenges any coaching staff faces, particularly with postseason aspirations still in view. Jonathan Kuminga's resurgence has added a new layer of intrigue to this phase of the season. His ability to score efficiently without monopolizing possessions is exactly what the offense needs. When options are limited, he attacks decisively, finishes through contact, and brings a physicality that changes how defenses react. More importantly, his confidence does not appear shaken by the inconsistency of his role, which speaks volumes about his mindset and preparation. That confidence can be contagious. When one player plays freely and aggressively, it often unlocks space for others to operate. Defenders are forced to help earlier, rotations become more complicated, and passing lanes open up. Kuminga's presence alone alters the geometry of the floor, even when he is not touching the ball. That kind of impact is difficult to quantify, but it shows up in the flow of the offense and the quality of shots generated. Looking ahead, the road test against Dallas looms as a measuring stick rather than just another game. Playing away from home removes the comfort of familiar surroundings and exposes mental lapses more clearly. The challenge will be maintaining composure when shots are not falling and resisting the temptation to force offense. Discipline, particularly on the defensive end, will determine whether the game stays competitive deep into the fourth quarter. There is also an underlying narrative about roster direction that cannot be ignored. As performances fluctuate, front office decisions inch closer to the spotlight. Productive stretches from young players can reshape priorities, influencing whether the organization leans toward patience or aggression. Every strong outing increases leverage, while every missed opportunity adds urgency. The next few weeks could quietly redefine the trajectory of the season. What makes this stretch so compelling is that it sits at the intersection of development and contention. The Warriors are not in a position to simply experiment without consequence, yet they cannot ignore the need to evolve. Veterans are being asked to anchor stability, while younger players are expected to grow in real time under pressure. That tension often reveals character, both individually and collectively. Ultimately, the response to this adversity will say more than the loss itself ever could. How the team competes, adjusts, and supports one another during this period will shape confidence moving forward. The answers are not immediate, and they will not come from a single performance, but from patterns that emerge as challenges continue to stack up, and opportunities to redefine roles present themselves night after night. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. The NBA is buzzing with a rumor so loud it feels like the league itself flinched. Around front offices and agent circles, one name keeps echoing above the rest: Giannis Antetokounmpo, and, according to growing speculation, the Golden State Warriors may have positioned themselves as the silent winners of the most dramatic market battle in years, leaving at least one direct rival exposed and embarrassed by how quickly the narrative slipped out of their control. The talk is not about a signed deal, sealed papers, or official announcements. It is about leverage, timing, and perception, the real currency of the NBA marketplace. Sources close to the situation suggest the Warriors have quietly assembled a package that checks boxes other franchises struggled to align at the same time: elite young talent, future flexibility, and a clear vision of how Giannis would fit without dismantling the core identity of the franchise. That alone has reportedly shifted internal conversations across the league. What stings rivals most is not just the possibility of losing the Antetokounmpo sweepstakes, but how unprepared some appeared once Golden State entered the frame. One contender, long rumored as a frontrunner, is now described as scrambling. Its assets suddenly viewed as insufficient or poorly timed. In league politics, perception matters, and the idea that the Warriors could dictate terms has changed the tone of negotiations overnight. Inside NBA circles, executives whisper that Golden State's front office play the long game, waiting for the exact moment when pressure, ambition, and opportunity align. Giannis, a symbol of dominance and loyalty, represents more than a superstar addition. He represents a shift of power. Even the possibility of him in a Warriors jersey has forced rivals to rethink strategies, future contracts, and competitive windows. For now, it remains a rumor, powerful, destabilizing, and impossible to ignore. But in the NBA, rumors like this rarely exist without reason, and if the whispers prove true, the league may soon discover that the biggest victory happens long before anything becomes official. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.